Good afternoon. I wanted to update you before you start week two's activities, and as we continue through the semester. In early December 2019, Adobe updated Animate, and so some of my videos, the UI or user interface, will look completely different than what you see in the software, or they will appear to be completely different. And I'm still in the process of getting started with updating the videos. Unfortunately, from the fall to the spring term, there's just not enough time to do that. And what I wanted to note is the interesting thing is if this is your first time using Adobe Animate, you will probably see something a little bit different than what you see on my screen. And so by default, since I've used it in the past, I'll see some recent um, projects and options to start a new file fast. In fact, this is brand new, and this little component appeared about 3 weeks ago. So for the most part, the first time, if you're brand new to Animate and you launch the software for the first time, more than likely you'll see a screen that looks like this to learn more about Animate. And you can complete hands-on tutorials. I would encourage you not to do that right now because some of the concepts might confuse you. And you'll get an option to do something like creating a bouncing ball later on in our class. What I would recommend is that you select Create New by clicking the Create New button first. And then this gallery will appear. And this is kind of a standard of what we used to see. It was one of the first things that we would see. And if you watch my video, you'll see this as an option. And by default, instead of having to select Canvas in HTML5, it defaults to it because ActionScript 3 or Flash projects will be going away at the end of 2020. And so this is where you want to get started. As an option, you can also select File and then New, and then it will open up the same gallery with the options. And it's pretty interesting because when you look at this new document gallery, you get an idea of where Animate is going in its evolution, either focusing on character animation, creating social media plugins and applications, games, education, which is still evolving. I don't know what Adobe plans to do with this. Years ago they had some really nice educational components, ads, which we'll be talking about over the next 2 weeks, web, which is HTML5 Canvas, and then advanced, which includes again HTML5 Canvas, WebGL. There's a new feature that's in beta, WebGL extension, as well as VR and VR Panorama and VR 360 are both in beta. Air, for the most part, will be disappearing because that's similar to the Flash platform. And you know, we won't see some of these features. But for this week, I want you to start with web. Select at least the low preset, which is 640 by 480. And then at that point, you're ready to follow along in my tutorial. If you click Create, then what you'll see is some interesting things. Let me kill the output. That just opened because I've used it in previous project. Now you're going to see a little bit of a difference than what you see in my video, but for the most part the layout generally has stayed the same. You have the option of using tools and here over on the tools panel. Here you have the timeline. One of the major differences here, we'll talk about it later, is setting or inserting keyframes or frames, blank frames or frames, navigating from one keyframe to the next, onion scanning. We'll talk about those things and what they mean. But you'll see in my video that how to add a layer. If you're used to Illustrator, or Photoshop, this environment will look familiar to you. There's a library, you have the properties panel, and so you will see a lot of similarities from what's in my video. If you have any questions, you can post those questions in the question forum. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about a little bit of the differences and some of the things that you will see. And if you have any questions, post them in the questions forum. I'd recommend that you watch the video first, and then if you see any differences that confuse you, then post your questions in the question forum. Okay, thank you and have a good week.